Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you here with us this afternoon. The Monterey Public Library, of course, welcomes you, and thanks tremendously to Alyson Kuhn for presenting today's program, Essential Kindnesses on Paper. We send a warm welcome to everyone. It's really exciting to see you here today. And Alyson, I actually met when she attended a library program some years ago. It was gratitude and note card writing. Through that time, we've had the great fortune to share correspondence ourselves, which I've been very grateful for, as well as many of our library staff members have received her gracious gifts. So I'm very excited to welcome her, and thank you so much, Alyson, for being here to share your kindness and your gifts of writing.
Thank you, Francesca. Thanks. Shall I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I am going to show a lot of images in the next hour, and in just a few instances, I'm going to read some of what someone has written inside a card or a note, because real mail has form and content, and also a third element that I call soul or inspiration. I love to receive beautiful or clever or corny cards, but ultimately it's what is said that for me sums up and summons up that person and perhaps some memories for me. So I'm going to do a tiny bit of reading and mostly showing. So this card I received from my friend Donna Galletti early in the shelter season. I had met her through my first two talks at the Monterey Public Library, and in the ensuing years, we have had beverages together on almost countless occasions. So this was just such a perfect card from her, and she writes, "The only way we can meet for tea these days, until we can meet in person, be well, Donna." So I sent her back this. The floral card is my note card. Donna and I both tend to haunt Trader Joe's for good cards, but she has the big advantage of me because she writes by hand and she has nice handwriting as well. I'm a very impatient handwriter, so I like horizontally oriented cards so that I can type on them in my IBM Selectric typewriter. So this card is actually not a horizontal card, but I was able to turn it sideways because the design was general enough that I could actually type on there. And the three enclosures that you see all have particular significance for Donna. I'm big on enclosures. This is a card from my friend Bob. He's a very, he's a man of few words, I would say. But his words are always full of friendship and positive energy. So he hand colored this card with his new colored pens. And inside, he writes, "Thank you for continuing to be such an amazing you. Wishing you a wonderful day." I mean, really, what else can I hope for? It's shorter than a haiku, and it makes my heart smile. Okay, this is difficult to see, but I want you to see. So I've held Bob's envelope with the card inside up to the light. And the card is actually square, and small square envelopes require extra postage, which Hallmark, in this occasion, was trying to avoid. So they made a pouch to keep the card secure so that you could mail it in a horizontal envelope. I think this is one of the cleverest envelope innovations I have ever seen. And I say all hail to someone at Hallmark for this. Speaking of Hallmark, I had the incredible pleasure of speaking at Hallmark a couple of years at the invitation of my then new friend, Emily Akins, who's on my left. at the end of what was absolutely the most fun day of my papery life, we moved the bench, we raised the blinds, and we positioned ourselves so that it could look as if I were actually wearing the Hallmark crown. That evening, I opened my goodie bag, my thank you present from Hallmark for speaking that day. And in that bag, I found one card in particular that has remained my favorite thank you card for over 2 years now. I'm going to describe it because I don't happen to have one on hand to show at this moment. So it's a small card. It has an illustration of half of a pink grapefruit, and in gold foil it says, "Thank you." And you open it up and all it says inside is, "I'm eternally grapefruit." Okay, this is totally my kind of thing. This is just an assortment. It's not comprehensive by any means. This is an assortment of mail that I have received from Emily. At the lower right is a book called Frog and Toad Are Friends. And my absolute favorite story in there is about Toad being depressed because he's not getting any mail. So Frog writes him a piece of mail and asks a snail to deliver it. I'm not going to say any more. If you've never read Toad and Frog Are Friends, I cannot recommend it too highly. Here we see a little tag that is attached to a tea bag. I honestly believe that no piece of paper is too small to have an impact. And so this was sort of my testimonial to that, if you will. I also believe that almost no surface is too small to type on. Here you see a tiny envelope. It's barely big enough to hold a business card. I've typed this little label that goes on it, and inside are 2 tiny envelopes, inside which are 2 even tinier sweet somethings that I have typed to my sweetheart so that he can carry this around with him. In the realm of small envelopes, this is not only the smallest envelope I have received since March, but it is the smallest envelope I have ever received via mail. This is from a young friend of mine, David Reed, who is going to school in Paris. It's legal in France to send a tiny, tiny envelope, but it is below the mailing norms for the US Postal Service, which processes millions and millions and millions of pieces of mail every day. So after this little envelope had safely crossed the ocean, we assume on an aircraft, when it arrived in San Jose, which is the sorting center for Monterey, where I live, someone at the Postal Service thoughtfully decided to put it in a protective envelope so that it wouldn't get damaged in the end of its journey, if you will. And on the back of the envelope is all this lovely prose from the Postal Service saying, "We hope we haven't inconvenienced you, and we hope your mail isn't damaged. And we constantly look to find ways to improve our service." I mean, it was just lovely. So during the pandemic, when everything is topsy-turvy, the Postal Service is paying attention to my tiny envelope. Might I mention that my correspondent has neglected to put my zip code on here. So this tiny envelope not only has no zip code, but is so incredibly tiny. And here you see it next to a Morgan silver dollar, just so you can get a sense of how petite it is. Here's the inside. What's going to be on the inside is David's new address in Paris. Before we leave the realm of tiny envelopes, I just want to show you these. People who've been to my talks before have seen them and admired them, but I thought for people who haven't, that I would show them. These are my name tags from 6 events that had to do with the stamp alphabet that two friends and I developed in 1997, thinking it would just be a one-night show about the collecting of stamps and the sending of mail. And at the upper left, with the paperclip, which I chose that stamp for myself, you see my name tag from that event in 1997. However, the project took on a life of its own. We took it on the road, so to speak. We took it to Seattle, which is the envelope to the right. And then we took it to Vancouver, which is the envelope to the far right. And ultimately, it made its way all the way to the National Postal Museum in Washington, DC. And at the lower right, you see my name tag from the grand opening reception for our exhibition at the museum. So it was really a dream come true. And these 6 little envelopes for me embody the entire history of the project. I can look at them, I can remember who I imposed on to do the writing on the envelopes, none of which is mine. I remember the circumstances of those events. And so for me, it's this encapsulation on paper. These are among truly my most cherished little artifacts. That's the end of the baby envelope portion of the program. Now we're moving on to the largest piece of mail I've received during the pandemic. This is also from David Reed in Paris, sending me a very full report and a catalog from a chocolate store and some ribbons I had asked him to buy for me at a wonderful ribbon store. I love the fact that someone who's 20 years old has this handwriting, this attention to detail. His French is far better than mine. And I love that at the bottom, he signs his entire name, David Goldwasser Reed. And then for good measure, he does a little monogram in the lower right-hand corner. So he's a very prized new correspondent and hopefully an inspiration to his contemporaries. I won't say peers, but to other young people. This is the some of the correspondence I have received from my most prolific correspondent, Constance McCarthy. She and I met when she took my Art of Letters workshop back in the mid-90s when I was working at the flagship Paper Source store in Chicago. She endeared herself approximately forever to me by writing the most glowing evaluation review of my workshop, which I'm just going to read it to you. She wrote it in fountain pen. And now for the Nobel Prize in envelope folding and inspiration to correspondence crazed masses, Alison. We've gone on to become great correspondents. She writes always by hand. And might I add, she is exemplary about remembering to put the date, including the year, on her correspondence. And because my Constance file is very robust, it's wonderful to have a sequence if I want, in fact, to reconstruct. This is from Constance in the early 2000s. It is probably my single favorite piece of mail from her because it embodies so much about what I love about her and her enthusiasm for correspondence. So indeed, the pink envelope truly is hideous. And so she acknowledges that by rubber stamping a guy and having him acknowledge the hideousness of the envelope. So inside, as you can see, is Alvin. And for those of you who can see me on your screen, this is the Alvin card. Constance has written her message inside, and then on the back, she has changed where it says Alvin to Alison, which I love even more. And then she compares my personality and temperament to that of Alvin. So One of Constance's signature things is doing a little caption on the envelope. And here you can see an envelope that she sent me. Actually, it was at the end of last year, so technically not during the pandemic, but she puts this Argentinian stamp on the back just because, and then she writes this little thing, "Don't cry for me, Argentina, nor Albania, Aruba, Armenia, Austria, Andorra, or Australia." So again, this makes me so happy. It's a little incidental bonus with my correspondence. The letter inside that envelope, by the way, was 2 entire huge handwritten pages, and I've reread them many, many times. So as I've mentioned a couple of times, I am a person who is more comfortable typing than handwriting. So inspired somewhat by Constance, I try sometimes to do something with a little personality in my typewriter on an envelope. And so here you can see that I have typed to the recipient, my friend Carol, some commentary about the envelope itself. And I have gone to the trouble of centering each line because I like how it looks. It's just that simple. Back to Constance for one moment. So Constance mentioned to me one day last spring that she has a pair of cousins, twins, who are still in high school and love retro technologies, typewriters, phonographs, and so on. And they decided that they would send a piece of mail to Tom Hanks. And so I laughed out loud on the phone and said, "So did he write back?" And she goes, "Yeah, he did." So I thought, okay, if these high school boys can do this, I'm going to write Tom Hanks. I'm going to tell him how much I love his book of typewriter stories and how much I love that he loves typewriters. This particular copy of this book, in fact, was a gift to me from Chris Essert, who attended my last talk at the Monterey Public Library. He presented me with this at the end of my talk, which was totally delightful. As it happened, I had already read the book, having gotten it out of the Monterey Public Library, but I was delighted to have a copy for my own library. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to try and make a very Alison piece of mail for Tom Hanks. So I took my typewriter sheet. I wrote this note, which I'm hoping you can read. I'm not going to read it out loud, but I did an envelope that I had handmade, and I put this in there, and I sent it off. And I thought, okay, I love that I finally did it, that I expressed my appreciation of his typewriter advocacy. And if I hear back, I hear back. And if I don't, I don't. So the summer passes. We are now in fall. I am away from home, but every day I can see my incoming letters on my Informed Delivery Daily Digest, one of the great conveniences of my modern life. And what do I see? Yes, I know that Tom Hanks's moniker for his personal stuff is Playtone. So I look at this and I think, oh my God, okay, he's written me back. Tom Hanks has written me. So when I get home, 2 weeks later, I go to my post office box, which has in it just a note that says, "You have excess mail, come see a desk clerk." So I go and get on my mail, and I admit it's a lot. I ask if I can borrow the bin overnight and just take it home. Raquel says, "I'm really sorry, Alison, you can't take the bin home." So I decant it into a tote bag. And while I'm doing that in the post office, I'm looking for my envelope from Tom Hanks. And here it is in all its glory. It's hand addressed in green marking pen. You can see that the rubber stamp at the upper left is not perfectly applied, but I'm not criticizing. And here is my typed letter from Tom Hanks on engraved stationery. It's pale gray. It's a color that's not made anymore, actually, to our great mutual, I'm sure, disappointment. And down at the bottom, you can see that he has typed Remington Rand Streamliner. So he's telling me what typewriter he's typed this note on. Needless to say, the content of this note thrills me, and I probably will frame it. And yes, I'm already planning to write him again. Here is a close-up so that you can really appreciate the typewriter-ness of it. So this is not Tom Hanks's envelope for me, but I used this same image on it. This was the cover page of a section of the Weekend Wall Street Journal back in April. And I took one look at it, and it was for a feature about gardening. I mean, look what somebody has done to the keys. It's so great. And I thought, oh, I need a lot of these. So I made color copies, and then I made them into envelopes for several of my friends. And they were highly admired, I must say. I would like to receive one. I want to just mention for a second that little label that says you cannot see the addressee. When I was working on my stamp alphabet exhibition at the Smithsonian, I was told that we couldn't show any mail that had someone's personal address on it. And so we made little things that said you cannot see the addressee. So now I'm so fond of that phrase that I made one and put 2 pairs of googly eyes on it. And so when I'm photographing my outgoing mail, I always put that over somebody's address to protect their privacy. This envelope is made without a template. I know that most people use templates when they're hand cutting and folding an envelope. I don't like to do that. And lo and behold, in May, I received an email from someone I didn't know named Laura Glazer in Portland. And she was writing to ask if I could possibly give her some guidance on where she could find information for making envelopes without a template. And she briefly told me that she had a book, a cherished book, which she had loaned to someone. The someone returned the book and a caramel cake as a thank you present. And unfortunately, the caramel cake and the book had a brief fling together, if you will, such that there was caramel on many pages of the book. So rather than berate herself, Laura thought, whoa, maybe I can make these pages into envelopes. So she wanted to know if I would help her. So I asked her the pertinent questions. What size are the pages? Do they all have basically the same format, which they didn't, because it turned out to be a fabulous book of different women artists, illustrated by, as it happens, someone that Laura Glazer actually knows. And so I said, okay, you want some flexibility here? Let me make you some templates so that you can understand. So I sent this off to her, and this that you're looking at is the envelope I get back. She has typed, I'm going to just hold this up to the screen so that you can see it. She has typed on a folded piece of airmail paper at great length with a, oh, let me do this one more time, with this beautiful script typeface. And she says, "Dear Alison, the great caramel disaster of 2020 is no longer a disaster thanks to your generosity. Not only am I delighted, but my pal who inadvertently caused it is relieved, and I have promised her an envelope as proof." La-di-da, la-di-da. Anyway, I think that this envelope is just spectacular. Here's the back. So I feel so happy that I was able to help somebody who was having an envelope crisis. Oh, look, it almost looks like we're having intermission here in the theater. So my friend Jane sent me this bridge mix. And this is the little enclosure note that when you're ordering Seas Candies online, you can request. So consider is sort of a thing with Jane and me. We frequently say, let's consider. So now she has written, hi, Alison, consider. Think these will go great in your oatmeal as a treat. Enjoy. So I, of course, full of good intentions, plan to write Jane a thank you note, but I'm able to show you the envelope and the as yet unwritten note card because it hasn't happened. So I took a piece of contact paper, my favorite black and white check, and I lined an envelope with it so it would look like the floor of a Sears store. And then I have a little black and white note card, which again has nothing yet written in it, but I am full of good intentions. So I think my point here is I'm so happy to have that little enclosure card, which Jane just typed online. So it doesn't have her name, it doesn't have her hand, if you will. But for me, since the bridge mix is long gone, this is a wonderful little keepsake. I will never get rid of this little piece of paper. Similarly, my friend Thea, who, as you can see from the card on the left, has lovely penmanship and really knows how to write a nice note, but she was sending me a box of very fancy chocolates tied with red organza ribbon. And imagine her chagrin when she gets to the shipping place and realizes she has no wherewithal to write a note. So she tears a scrap off of I don't know what, and she writes in a frenzy, clearly, I don't write well under pressure. Much love to you both. Congrats on your book and feature. Thanks again for everything, Thea. So, I mean, it's just this mad scrawl. But again, that's what I still have. And I love that as a keepsake, a little scrap. The spring and summer have been financially disastrous, many places, probably most places, but Monterey, where I live, is a huge tourist destination, and the library, of which I'm incredibly fond, as you might have gathered by now, has been extremely hard hit by the pandemic. The library has been closed since mid-March. You now can have curbside pickup, which is working quite beautifully, but the library staff has had to be acutely cut, and I wanted to do everything I could to advocate in support of the library and the library staff. So I wrote thank you notes to the city manager and two other people who had done magnificent online presentation about the city's finances and the circumstances that we found ourselves in. And so I realized that the thank you notes would just sit there because the city offices themselves were partly closed. So I had an email exchange with Clementine, who is the clerk for the city. And I said, if I send you these letters, can you get them to people? And she said, absolutely. So I put my 3 thank you notes in a big fat envelope. I rubber stamped fan mail on there. I sent it off. She sent me an email back assuring me that people had gotten their letters. And imagine my delight. I'm going to hold this up. This is a thank you note that I received from the city manager of Monterey, who only has about a zillion things more pressing than to send me a thank you note. But he takes his official note card with the beautiful gold foil stamp seal of the city of Monterey, and with his beautiful penmanship, he writes me a note which says, "Dear Alison, thank you so much for taking the time to write this kind letter. It came at the right time. Our city is so blessed to have residents like you. We are your public servants. Thank you again. You made my month." Okay, you made my month. I felt at this moment like I needed to send this man a thank you note for his thank you note. So I decided that I would continue supporting the things that matter to me, particularly when I could support them via mail. So Move On started a big campaign to try and fund the Postal Service. And so if you made a donation, you got these little stickers, "We love mail carriers." And then a friend of mine sent me these little vehicles. He's now started a huge collection of miniature postal vehicles, which I think is pretty funny. And one of the things that Move On suggested that you do to show your support for the Postal Service was to write your senators. So I thought, okay, I like that idea. So here is the letter that part of it, that I wrote to Kamala Harris. I used stamps that I thought maybe she would get a kick out of. They either have to do with mail or with correspondence. And then I decided that I should thank the mailman for delivering them. So here is a little sticker that I typed: "Thank you for delivering my mail." I wrote about these on Facebook, and then a very savvy friend of mine pointed out that, of course, all the mail for the senators still goes to some center where it gets irradiated for anthrax. And I could only picture the huge volume of mail that normally is there. And I realized that they might never actually see my mail, but that's okay. I mean, it is okay, right? Yeah. I did it, that's the thing. And I wrote about it. And so maybe that encouraged other people to do it. Here we have 3 of the communiques I've received from my friend Mary Austin since March. There's an Edward Gory card, which I know she sent to several people. If you can't read the caption, it says, "Perhaps you don't, perhaps you do know why I've sent this card to you." So I love Edward Gory. I love the fact that the damsel has fallen head first off of her tuffet, that she's left her slippers behind, revealing her scarlet stockings. And inside there was nothing, just Mary had signed. But I felt that that was incredibly wonderful, because I don't exactly know why she sent it, except as a sign of friendship. The card at the upper right is incredibly beautiful. It's sunny, it's vibrant, and on the back, Mary has written, "A treasure from my last real trip to New Orleans in January. A wonderful printing co-op, just making ends meet and filling the world with beauty." So she manages in just 2 sentences to say so much about where she got this card and what it means to her. So on the back of the card, it says that it was printed in New Orleans by the Planetary Magnetics Corporation, which I'm guessing is the name of this printing co-op. So it's so sunny that it fills me with joy. The other card I love because it's in a shape. Mary was in the Sacramento River Delta, and I think had just a little jag of sending postcards, and so I love this one. Back to sending things to people that I don't know personally during this time. There is a gallery in Massachusetts called Pulp, and Pulp sponsored an exhibition called Pushing the Envelope back in the spring. The gallerist, Dean Brown, was hoping he might get 100 envelopes, and it was basically just something in the time of the pandemic. You didn't have to necessarily reference the pandemic, but it had to be something you had created during the pandemic. So instead of 100 envelopes, he received almost 500. And I am thrilled to say that, yes, I actually got motivated. I made one and I sent it. And here you see it. So it's made from a vintage Japanese calendar page. At the upper left are actual snails that just happen to be there. And I used little pumpkin seed sunfish stamps. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience for me, and it was a thrilling project. So all of the 500 envelopes were for sale for $70. The artist got all the money, which was incredible. So Dean Brown was making no money. I'm now trying to entice him to do a catalog, and I've offered to try and help him find ways to fund that. I know who bought my envelope, and I have since sent them a companion envelope. It's people I don't know. And of course, I would have been delighted if someone I do know had bought it, but I particularly love that someone I don't know bought it. Moving right along, this is a note that I sent to my friend Jenny Hinchcliffe, who is the founder of the San Francisco Correspondence Co-op, which is a group of people who love sending and, of course, receiving mail. And so this is a postcard by the deceased artist Donald Evans, and I decided that I would actually send on this side and then just write my message on the back side. So for me, this is a very fun thing. I don't normally send postcards because I feel that sometimes they get a bit worn in the mail, but I wanted to do this, and I thought, okay, if it gets a little bit dinged, it will look all the better. It will look like it's gone on, you know, a trip to some imaginary place. Here you can see that I took a corner, well, you can't, but I'll tell you, a corner from another Japanese calendar page. I don't cut up the pages for scraps. I just have scraps for making so many envelopes out of those calendar pages. And so I fed this into my typewriter. The mulberry paper is certainly from the early 60s. It is robust yet supple, and I could type on there. And I was particularly delighted to be sending this piece of mail to Antonio, who designed the stamp that's in the upper right-hand corner. So I think I don't know that I sent it, certainly the end of April. The stamp came out on Earth Day, which I think was April 22nd. And I was hoping that I would be the first person to send him a piece of mail with his stamp on it. He himself is a fabulous correspondent, a fabulous designer, a wonderful artist. And so he makes me this big postcard out of chipboard with this A on it. We both have a bit of an A fetish. He has far more A's in his name. It's Antonio Alcala, and so Alcala has 3 A's in it, and I'm pretty sure his middle name has an A in it as well. Anyway, so he makes me this thing from scratch and then apologizes that it's not better, but of course it's spectacular. This is the other side, and I totally love it. This is from my friend Barry Zaki in Chicago, who refers to me as her postal muse because in the hellishly hot summer of 1995 in Chicago, I taught her how to hand fold envelopes sitting in my air-conditioned bedroom at a huge table. So she's always referred to me as her postal muse. She has gone on to surpass me in so many epistolary endeavors, but she still calls me her postal muse. So what was she was sending me was 3 fabulous sheets of labels from Cambridge Imprint and a wonderful postcard by an illustrator named Helen Hancox, which is like this sort of encyclopedia of baked goods. And she has given me, Barry, generously several of these in past weeks, and I've discovered that I can color them in with colored pencil when I'm supposed to be doing other things. So here she's given me one more for my collection, my coffers. A couple of months ago, a friend of mine suggested me for a correspondence exchange organized by a wonderful, wonderful enterprise in Berkeley, California called Castle in the Air. And you can see a Castle in the Air sticker at the lower right. The magnificent envelope right in the middle of this little montage addressed to me is from Ben, who works at Castle in the Air and orchestrates many things. And so I emailed Ben and said, you know, Ben, I don't think that I'm a good candidate because everyone else is going to be practicing their calligraphy and their watercolors and all these other things that they've learned at Castle in the Air. But I am a person who only signs my name on a check. I type everything. So I don't think that I would really be in the spirit, if you will, of the exchange. And he writes back, and he doesn't use the word novel, but basically he says, oh, no, Alison, I think people would get a kick out of that. So I say, okay, don't say I didn't warn you. So what you're looking at here is a montage of some of the fabulous things that I have received from people who are in my little pen friends cohort. And I want to draw your attention to the card and envelope directly to the left of Ben's envelope. So you see the sort of woodland stripes, and then you see the envelope with the trees, and then to the right, you see the Dear Alison card in somebody's beautiful handwriting, but saying that if she were to send me a calligraphic note, she might never get around to it. So she considers this handwriting sort of mediocre. I think it's spectacular, but here is the amazing thing. My friend Barry Zaki, before she sent me the Postal Muse envelope, posted it on her blog. Let me see if I can go back for a second. I might not be allowed. Yes, I can. Look at that, technology. So Barry posts this on her blog. Karen Eisenstadt, who is the writer of both the card on the left and the card to the right of the beautiful Alyson Kuhn envelope, recognizes my P.O. box number. She thinks to herself, 222282. I know that post office box. So she sends Barry an email and discreetly inquires whether I am, in fact, Barry's postal muse. So Barry acknowledges that, yes, it is indeed I. So the card on the right here was Karen's first card to me before she knew that we had this connection. The card on the left is her second communique, in which she actually says, I don't mean to be postally stalking you, but I can't believe that we have this connection. And then she tells me that she used to live in Chicago, and on a recent visit, she discovered Barry's store and la-di-da-di-da. So it's this hilarious connection that we have now, all because she recognized my P.O. box number. Otherwise, we never would have had this connection. And so I love that epistolary vigilance. So here is a card and an envelope with this wonderful watercolor pumpkin from one of the members of my cohort from Castle in the Air. And she notes on the back of her envelope, happy fall, y'all, which from somebody in Georgia, I just thought was divine. So I, because I was out of town and was feeling very guilty, felt that I needed to handwrite something. So I did my best and I colored in some little elements, but really felt like Roberta was not being very well paid for her missive. And so I still feel like I owe her something. This also from Svani, who does this beautiful envelope and these enclosures. So I sent her a postcard as well, doing the best that I could by hand. Can I say, we do what we can. So this is my little homage to the orange month, as I refer to October. There are lots of great orange stamps. And this is one day's particular output. And about this time, I started thinking, you know, if I can hand deliver a thank you note to people who are essential and essential to my well-being, then I want to try and do that. I want to branch out a little bit. So there's a bakery in Pacific Grove, one town over from where I live, called Pavel's. And the staff is so incredibly kind and so incredibly patient. The line runs down the block. The people helping you wash their hands after every transaction. They put on gloves. It goes on. And I thought, you know what? I want to thank those people because I'm so grateful for my chocolate croissant and my berry Danish. So here you see an order form, because you can only reserve pastries at Pavel's in person. You can't do it over the phone. You can't do it online. You can go there, order in advance, pay in advance, and then come pick them up. So I had my receipt for my 2 mixed berry Danish and my 1 chocolate croissant. And I thought, I can make this into a little love note for Annie, my clerk. So I cut it into a heart. Rob, my sweetheart, hand delivered it. And it was just this huge hit. I did actually, on that one, I did color in the Encyclopedia of Baked Goods. So there, it made me happy that they appreciated it so much, and that it made them feel appreciated in turn. So this is a little envelope that I hand delivered to a new grocery store in town. I'm trying to romance them to carry certain comestibles that would make my life better. And so I made this little envelope using some fruit stamps to try and get my point across, since one of the products I want them to carry is really great for putting on fruit salad. Here is another little local thing. Permaceram is a local company that refinishes bathtubs. I don't know what that's actually called, you know, re-ceramicizing your bathtub. So I needed to have my bathtub re-ceramicized, and Dave's truck has a huge mermaid painted on the side. And I thought, wait, while Dave is working on my bathtub, I am going to make Dave a little thank you note. So fortunately, there were those new postage stamps of Bugs Bunny in various scenarios, including pretending to be a mermaid. So I assembled this little envelope, and inside I happened to have this gorgeous card, which it kills me that I had only bought one, but I had. This is printed in gold on beautiful, soft aqua paper. And so I was able to feed it into my typewriter, type a note for Dave and his son, and then Rob folded 2 $10 bills into bow ties for them, because it seemed like a good thing to do. So this was my little thank you note to Permaceram for doing my bathtub. This is a note from my friend, Ms. Billy, with her unbelievable calligraphy. And I held it up to the light so that you could enjoy the watermark, which is Pineider, which is in Italy. Pineider is the company. The company is in Italy, it's not a town. Anyway, what I'd like you to do is think for a moment about how short this message is, but it's so elevated because it's so beautiful. Just a short missing you missive. I hope you are faring well, wishing you nothing but the best, sending you much love, Billy. So again, it's barely more words than a haiku, but it's been made so, so beautiful and makes me so happy during this period of incredible isolation. So next I'm going to show you a card from a dear friend of Billy's and mine, Tina, who, when she has a lot to say, she really goes to town. So here's a card with a beautiful quote by John Burroughs, and I'm sorry to have cut it off at the bottom. And I've sort of propped it open so you can see that she's written all over the left inside, all over the right inside. And what you can't see is that she's also written all over the back, telling me about her days in this period of isolation. So again, for me, these have even more of a sense of time and place. I know where my friends are for the most part, and I'm missing them so much. This is the most recent item I've typed. I typed it last night when I should have been working on this presentation. It's a little enclosure card for friends who are going on a road trip. And so I've sent them a little Halloween parcel of items that they can go on their road trip. And again, maybe they'll like keep the items, maybe they won't. They were a little bit gag gifty, but they will have the note if they want it. Yesterday, I also received a photo from my friend Bill. This is from the newest issue of a stamp publication called Lynn's Stamp News. And we both receive paper copies, but we also get digital copies. And so when Bill saw this yesterday morning, he snapped it, and sent it right to me. And I thought, okay, this is so funny, stamp collecting in the time of COVID. I love this thing. I have to try and make an homage to this. Well, it turns out to be not quite as easy to position your stamps in an attractive manner in this thing. But you will see that I am going to try momentarily. But first, so here are various pieces of correspondence from the San Francisco Correspondence Co-op over the past few months, things that I just love. Some of these people I have only become pals with online since we've started having Zoom meetings rather than meeting at the main San Francisco Public Library, which is currently closed. So again, I'm finding the Zoom meetings enriching in a way, frustrating in a way, but really, really fun. So the postcard with the elephant on it and the note to the left are from a woman named Rebecca, who's got a little bit of a sort of elephant thing. And so I'm trying to send her various elephant things. And so her thank you note at the upper left says, many thanks for the little sheet of Babar note paper. Gaston, that's the name of her elephant, immediately found a place for it in his scrapbook. I mean, do we love that? I do. The postcard on the right, keep them coming, postal coming, that was from another member of the Correspondence Co-op in honor of World Postcard Day, which I totally failed to observe. Yes, it's true. Another member of the Correspondence Co-op, Gina, sent me this postcard at the left. So she took an impressionist postcard, put masks on the mother and the little girl, and then just wrote, stay home, which I love. And so to the right, here's where I'm working on my mask. This is a work in progress. And if I get really organized, I may make it into photos to actually send to my friends. This envelope arrived, it was actually waiting for me in my excess mailbox mode. Elixir Design in San Francisco is, I think I can say famous really, for wonderful holiday gifts that are clever and touching and just marvelous, unexpected things. And so when I got this, I thought, wait, is there a holiday? Have I like missed a holiday? What's happening right here? Well, it turns out to be a non-calendar thing. It is a countdown to something. Here, let me get it so that you can see it. Hang on a sec. Look, you can do that when you're in your own office. So it's this with an easel. So you can stand it up and you can count down to something. So it came with a lovely little note saying that we all needed something to look forward to, and so you could count down to it. So it goes all the way down to 0, and I am aspiring, and I guess I'm announcing it in a very public forum, which maybe will really inspire me to do it. Starting later this week, there will be 31 days until my birthday, and I am going to try and send one piece of mail every single day, and I'm going to write about it on the countdown page for that day. And so when my birthday arrives, I will know that I am perhaps caught up on correspondence. I just want to mention before I end, Uppercase Magazine, for anyone who doesn't know about it, is a wonderful, wonderful publication It comes from Canada. It is the brainchild of Janine Van Gool. This is issue 46. Each issue has a theme or a focus. I don't think you can read this, but the tagline for the magazine is for the creative and curious. I adore this magazine, and I had an article in issue 46, which dovetails perfectly with my notion that there's no piece of paper too small to have an impact. I wrote about bits and scraps and shards of paper in this issue. Uppercase is currently having a sale on back issues, so you can get any back issue that's still available for, I believe, $10, and that's in effect until the end of the month. There also is currently a sale on subscriptions. There are 4 issues per year, and the first issue in 2021 has as its theme stationery, and I have written an A to Z for the stationery issue. So that's sort of the end of my, it's not a commercial break, it was an artistic break. I encourage you to check out Uppercase. The website alone is spectacular, and you can get a really great sense of the publication. I also know from Janine herself that the next issue, the issue 48, is going to have submissions from 50 different artists. So I think it's going to be a particularly spectacular issue if you're interested in mail and correspondence. This is my last slide because I am determined to end on time so that we have half an hour for questions and ostensibly answers, and also for show and tell. This envelope, the stamps across the top were applied by me, and the white label with the red border was applied by me. I mailed this to my friend Michael Osborne in 2003, and then he took the Robert and Deanna love stamp, made it into the letters LOVE, put this little address label on it, and sent it back to me. So I'm going to just conclude by urging all of you, who I assume are somewhat interested in corresponding on paper, to put some love in the air and see what you get in return. I am done now.
Thank you so much, Alison. Fabulous. I know there are going to be questions, and of course there's a lot of applause, accolades going in the chat. If anyone has a question, you are either welcome to raise your hand. You can access that by clicking the participant symbol, and then you will see a hand. Or if you would like to, oh, here we are, Laura, you can go ahead and please ask your question for Alison.
Hi, Alison. Great job.
Thank you, Laura.
I see that someone else is going to ask the same question, so I'm going to ask a different one. How do you feel about corresponding with somebody who is not very artful in their correspondence to you?
I actually feel fine about that. I truly love that you asked that, because some people feel, I cringe to use the word intimidated, but I know that that is how some people feel. They feel intimidated because they don't like their handwriting or they don't have fancy supplies. I truly don't judge. And as I tried to mention at the beginning, ultimately it is what is said. In the case of this envelope from my friend Michael, you know, there are no words at all. It's all art. But I get lots of mail from people who have handwriting that is not much better than mine. They don't have fancy paper. I have notes, particularly from my younger correspondents, on pieces of binder paper. And I cherish those because of what they say about my correspondent, you know, at that point in time. So I don't judge. And I have some friends actually one in particular who tries to send me mail with like lots of not very divine stamps on it, deliberately to say, ha, look at this. And I mean, I love it as much, you know, because it's its own statement. I would urge everybody, not just if you're writing to me, but if you're writing to anybody, really, it's about the intention. It's about the soul or inspiration behind it. I can't remember if it was Mother's Day or Father's Day, but I was in the market in the morning and I smiled at the clerk who was young. And I said, will you be seeing, I can't remember if it was your mother or your father today. And the clerk said, no. And I said, are you sending a card? And this young person actually looked right at me and said, I don't have the money to do that. And it was all I could do not to say, you know what, I'm going to give you 99 cents and you can go get a card at Trader Joe's. Shame on you. But I didn't do that. Yeah, I think that intention trumps form. Oh, yes, I do. I think that intention is the most important.
Thank you, Alison. And a reminder for finding the hand, if you click on the participant tab or the participant symbol, you'll then see where the hand is located. And Alison, I just want to share that there's a lot of applause and accolades again coming into the chat box. One person said, I'm going out now to buy more blue black ink for my calligraphy pens. I'm inspired to refresh and maintain my hand. Thank you, Alison. It was a joy and marvelous presentation. So there were so many, and there are some people who are already also noting that they are happy to share. So we want to see, I see that Gretchen also has her hand.
I do. Can you hear me?
We
Yeah.
can hear you,
Yes.
and you were the first person in the waiting room.
Oh.
Brava, punctuality.
Oh yeah, well, it came with my profession. I got a lovely letter this week from a little girl who just turned 6 years old in London, England. Her mother is 25, and I've known her for 21 years. I met her on my very first trip to London, and we've been corresponding for 21 years, and we see each other at least once a year, although now we can't. And so this week, I got this letter from her daughter, and I hope you can see it. She says, to Gretchen, I would love to be your pen pal. My favorite books are flamingo books. I am really enjoying school. I love English. I miss you too, and I love you, Madison. And this last week at her school, her teacher asked everyone in the class to please write a complete sentence. Madison was the only one who could do it. And I think that writing these letters has so improved her skills in school, and she just turned 6. So now I'm writing her back, and I'm enclosing some little flamingo address labels for her. But she uses wax seals that she does herself, and it just breaks my heart. It just warms my heart.
Oh my God, that's so great. You know, if you would like, Gretchen, you and I can do whatever, interact privately after this, and I can send you some postage stamps of James Madison, because maybe she would think that that's very funny to see her name on a postage stamp.
Yeah, she probably would. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great. Then Emily has her hand up as well. Emily, you can unmute yourself.
Got it. Hello. Hi, Alison.
Hi, Emily.
It's so good to see you.
Likewise.
And Gretchen, I loved your story. That sounds like a child after my own heart. I love that so much.
She's so sweet. I just love her.
It's precious. It's precious. Well, I just wanted to say I have reignited my love of post-crossing, which I want to point out Alyson Kuhn introduced me to 2 years ago. But I did it for a while and then lost it. And then when the pandemic hit and I was just trapped at home and feeling just trapped, hi Anna. I started doing post crossing again, and it has just warmed my soul endlessly for the last 6 or 7 months. And for what it's worth, I keep all of my postcards from around the world in an Alyson Kuhn box that she sent to Hallmark, covered in stamps, to one of my colleagues. And when my colleague was cleaning out her desk, she said, "Oh, I have this box. It's from Alison. I figured you'd want it." And I said, "Oh, yes, you know me so well." And so this is where I keep all of my postcards from around the world. But there's something, there was something particularly poignant about the post-crossing and the global connections in the context of a global pandemic, because I felt so far from people, but also so close to everyone in the fact that we are all linked by the same challenge. And there's Anna. She's posted the link for post-crossing if you guys aren't familiar already.
Perfect. Thank you, Anna.
Yes, thank you. And anyway, it's just been a delightful way to really kind of think more critically about this global community that we are all in this year, dealing with the same drama. And the other thing, I could go on for an hour, so I'm trying really hard. I have popcorn brain right now, like all the things I want to say, and I'm trying to contain my popcorn brain. 2 other things though, and Alison, I may have already sent you one of these. I can't remember. I'm going to start writing down what I send to whom, because I have pandemic brain and I can't remember a dang thing. But Portland Stamp Company made these stamps that say, "We are only 55 cents apart," which I think are delightful. Obviously not valid postage, but delightful because it does that. This is what sort of the correspondence by the post has done for me this year. Has made me feel so much closer to these people that I'm far away from. And I also feel a sense of urgency, because as soon as the postage changes again, these won't be valid. So I must use them soon. And then one canoe.
You can send some to me.
I'll send them to you. Yeah, I will send you some. One Canoe 2 is a company out of, I want to say like Springfield, Missouri, maybe. And they did a special pandemic collection of 5 cards. This one says, "Spread joy, not germs," which I thought was delightful. This one just says, "We need space," with a little astronaut on it. And then this one is, "Thanks for being there from a distance," which I think all sort of get to this. They're both clever and emotional. But then I already sent away the one that I love the most, and I wish I'd had multiples of those, which said, "I'm sorry the pandemic ruined your ... And you could just fill it in. And it was, I mean, you talk about a very sendable, versatile card. That one could have worked for many people for many things. So I've really enjoyed sort of the creative response to the pandemic with these 2 elements. And I'm still waiting for someone to make an attractive card that just says, "How's your pandemic going?" Because this is the thing that I ask everyone I know. "Hi, long time no see. How's your pandemic going?" It's the best open-ended question I can find. So maybe I need to find one of my Hallmark friends to make one of those. So anyway, that's my contribution.
Thank you, Emily.
Okay, thank you. See, just as another brief note, since the slide share is still sharing, if you want to view more participants, if you click at the top of your screen where it says view options, and then you click side by side mode, you can then extend over so you can see more people instead of just the envelope, which of course is gorgeous, but in case you want to have more of that. So Pamela, go ahead, please. And one note, I know Alison and I had discussed, we still have 20 minutes. Depending on how many shares are still coming, we might ask people to try to trim a little.
Should I stop sharing my screen, Francesca?
Possibly. It's up to you.
If I stop sharing it, then I can see a lot of people?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I want to do that.
There you are. Okay.
Okay.
So Pamela, you can
Hi.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I just have a question, and I also have something to share. And I get so many cards, especially from my daughter who is far away, and I'm a retired librarian. And so I figured out a way to keep track of all my cards, and that is I get, our library sells used old books, and I get these the cloth ones, and then I just I just put all the card, each page is a different card that I've put in it. So I can kind of just look through these books and just see all these cards that my daughter and all my friends have sent. I'm on my second book now because I just have so many cards. Does that make sense? Did I explain that right?
Yes, but when you put them in there, can you read them?
Yeah, I just throw them in like that. If it's a postcard, I usually it's kind of hard because I can't, sometimes I'll just do it half. I usually just want to see what she wrote, you know?
Yeah, well, of course.
Right.
So how are you affixing it?
I just glue the back on.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah. Some of them I just stick in there like this because I want to see both sides. So it's kind of stuck in there, but it's just a way to keep them. And I have these books. I have a lot of these books. And my question for you is how, you know, like I don't want to go to the post office now. How do you figure the postage for your things you send? How do you figure out how much postage to put on it?
Well, I happen to love going to the post office. It's where I am treated the most kindly. So I like going there. If you don't want to go, then really you need to get a little scale. There are postal scales that are made for, you know, measuring ounces in fractions of ounces. But then postage rates are also size specific. So it is a little bit complex. What I would say is when in doubt, over frank. Put more on there. So for example, an envelope that weighs less than an ounce, that's up to 6 inches by 9 inches, is 55 cents. But if it's larger than that, or if you decide you want to turn it so that it's running vertically, then it's going to be $1 automatically. So there are things you need to know. Squares take extra postage, etc. Do you not have a congenial post office that you could go to where you would feel safe?
Well, I'm in a really red state, really red zone. The numbers are so high, and there's just people there. I just would, you know.
I see.
And right now, I'm thinking maybe not, but
Then,
yeah. I mean, the post guy didn't have a mask. I went last week and he didn't have a mask on. The guy that helped me.
Okay. No, then I think what you should do, frankly, is consider this your pandemic indulgence. I think you should just put more on than it costs. And at USPS.com, it does do a very good job of explaining the rates. Okay. But again, it depends on what your piece is. It's not just by weight, it's weight and size. So it's a little bit complex.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Someone also in the chat said that they use a food scale and then the USPS website to verify other measures.
Oh, that's smart.
So that's another idea. And then Sarah also has her hand up. And then Alison, after Sarah asks you, there is a question as well as far as how do you store your correspondence?
Oh, okay.
So Sarah, you can go ahead, and then after Alison can answer that.
Okay, well, that actually was my question. I had typed it earlier. I was wondering how Alison stores all of her received correspondence.
So I store by correspondent in a manila folder, and then I put everything from that person in there, and I keep those pretty much in alphabetical order. Occasionally I use a translucent envelope and I put everything in there, but I'm gonna digress for 1 second and grab something to show you.
While Alison has stepped away, there was a question in the chat box asking Emily what the name of the greeting card company was that you mentioned.
It's One Canoe 2.
Thank you.
Their website uses numerals. So the number 1 canoe, the number 2.com.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, Alison.
Okay, this is going to be very cumbersome to show, but I have 3 of these big black boxes, which are really made for photographers. And inside, okay, I have to cover my face for a minute. Inside, my friend Donna, who's on this call, wrote the names of various friends on manila folders that I cannibalized for this purpose. And then I filed my correspondence from everybody, because for my 50th birthday, I had a one-night exhibition of mail that I have sent and received in the first 50 years of my life. And so I filed it all alphabetically in 3 of these big black boxes. And I had a one-night party, if you will, at the San Francisco Center for the Book. And so people could look through. People loaned me back the mail that I had sent them. And I, of course, had the mail that people had sent me. And now what I'm thinking, because these boxes have been around for a long time, is that I'm going to repurpose them. And I actually see the person on this call that I'm hoping to impose upon to do the printing of my new index tabs. And I'm going to go ahead and redo so that everybody I'm currently in correspondence with will be in alphabetical order behind a tab. And I just use clear plastic sleeves to put the things in, because, you know, my mail doesn't need to be archivally protected. So I'm a big believer in plastic sleeves. Done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Judy, please.
You're muted, Judy. You're muted.
And I'm getting a phone call. You can probably hear that. Any
Unmuted now, I believe.
it's probably an election ad. I'm just going to.
So I didn't know that we had a chance to show and tell, but I would have shown you something that I think is pretty spectacular. My daughter is in New York City and she works on Broadway, and everyone on Broadway is unemployed. And I think a lot of them are feeling kind of low. So I asked Rachel if I could send correspondence to each of the people on her list of friends who might like a little postcard with a joyful note. And she said that would be great. And she sent me 4 addresses. And then the next email, there were 25 addresses. And so I have a collection of what I call zany postcards, the kind that show the corn cob that's, you know, larger than life, or the apple that's larger than life, or the alligator that's larger than life. And I have some old funky ones. And so I sent postcards to each of these individuals who are mostly in New York, some in Connecticut, some who've gone home. And I have gotten thank you notes from these young people. They're all in their 30s. Thank you notes for sending them the postcards, and how nice it is to receive mail. And I wish I had it with me, but I don't. But I will describe to you that one of the women has a small dog, and she dressed him in a costume. Now I may post this on the website, on my website. And the dog is wearing a letter carrier's costume, and the paws are down, but he's holding a box, a priority box that he's mailing. And so it's her Halloween card. She dressed him up as a letter carrier, which I thought was pretty wonderful. And it's just great to have the opportunity to introduce young people to the art of correspondence. And I also want to shout out to Jennifer Utter, who is on this call. She was kind enough to put a thank you note on the front of an envelope that she sent me that was addressed a thank you to Tracy, my letter carrier, and he noticed it when he was putting the mail in the box, and it made his day. It really was spectacular. So just a little bit about, you know, sending cards or letters to people completely out of the blue, and also to be sure to acknowledge your letter carriers. They're having a tough time. That's it.
Thank you. I would like to add that I put one of those little miniature postal trucks and I tied a thank you note on it and I put it in my mailbox so that my mail carrier could get it. And the next time I saw it, he goes, "Thank you. I really loved that. I meant to send you a thank you note." Well, he happens to have beautiful printing. I know that because I was an offender in one regard. And so he had to leave a note saying that I was an offender. So I know he has stunning printing. So I'm still angling for a thank you note from him.
Excellent.
Thank you. Gretchen has her hand up.
Well, you were talking about postcards and a catalog, Photographer's Edge. They make these really cool postcards that are blank. And on the back, so see you can, well, they're all lined and everything. But on the back, you just rip off paper and it sticks. So you can put original artwork on it and you've got a postcard. They're really cool.
That's excellent. I have gotten some of those, but I've never made one, I confess.
Oh, they're great. And then in Sandy, Oregon, I have a photographer friend who hosts a postcard exchange. And every month she emails people and you can join or not join, whatever. And then on the 15th, she randomly selects and puts us together. And then if there are people from all over the world, and we send out postcards then to the person she selects for us. And they are all analog photography, like this is a pinhole image. And we all do film. We all use film, not digital. And so I get postcards every month from all over the world, all original photography, all done with film cameras. And it's wonderful.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. That's it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, did you mention a postcard company just now?
Are you
Sorry.
talking to me?
Yes, or you can
sorry.
see in the chat, somebody had asked the name of the postcard company.
Oh, sorry. It is a catalog. It's Photographer's Edge. They sell like frames and albums and all kinds of things, but then they sell these postcards.
Okay, thank you.
I'll write it down here.
Great. Alison, there's another question asking you, how did your love for stamps begin? And how do you select your vintage stamps for each respective recipient?
So I think my fondness for stamps in general really blossomed when I was living in Paris, because one of my duties was to go to the philatelic window of the post office. This was in the 70s, and the stamp choices were just incredible. And so I would buy big and, sent a lot of letters back to the States. But I think that was when I really started noticing stamps. And then by the time I got back, I was just very into correspondence. Now I'm incredibly lucky because I live near a superb stamp store called Carmel Stamp and Coin. And so I can send over the Scott numbers I need via email, and then usually go and pick up my stamps. So it makes it very easy for me to keep up. And invariably, no matter how many stamps I have, and I have quite a lot, I could be locked in here for several years and not run out of stamps. But I love to use the right stamps for somebody. And so I'm frequently thinking, oh, I can't believe I don't have any of those. I have to like go get 4 or 8 or what have you. Stamps are, these mini artworks that enable somebody who's not about to do a watercolor or a doodle or a sketch. I can feel like I'm sending my message through the postage stamps that I choose. And sometimes it's just a question of color. Could be color, but it could also be theme. So I don't actually buy any stamps to keep them. I buy them to use them. And it is one of my favorite things. So there we are. Did that answer the question?
If it did not, then I'll ask the person who pose the question to, please go ahead and ask for further
Enlightenment.
It does seem very much so, though, Alison. Thank you. Let's see, we have maybe time for one more question or a share. If somebody just wants to unmute themselves, you're welcome to do so since there are no hands raised. Yes, Judith, I see your hand raised there. You'll just need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hi, Alison.
Hi, Judy.
I love your talk.
Thank you.
Alison showed up at my house one day when I was making a card for a friend who was turning 100. And Alison showed up with these little stickers that there was a 1 and 2 zeros. And I just want to tell you, my friend loved the card and I just loved making it. And I'll send you an email of it. But
oh, I would love to see it.
You have gotten me into collage in a big way. And so I'm going to the Center for the Book online and making collages every day almost. And I wondered if you have any source where I could take these and make them into postcards or artwork. What can you do with your artwork that will help in correspondence?
Well, I think that whatever it was that Gretchen mentioned, where you could, get these adhesive backed things, and what you would want to do is photograph or scan your collage, have them printed out, which you could do at the UPS store. They would print it out for you in multiples. Then you could trim them there to the exact size you need and stick it on this postcard back that Gretchen is actually holding up so that we can see it. That to me seems like a pretty easy way.
Who makes it?
Photographer's Edge is where she gets hers.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Alison.
I've gotten mine from through Amazon, and they come in a pack, I think, I don't know, 6 or 8. And they're very easy to, I use them to recycle postcards that I've received that I particularly love, that I'd like to pass on to someone else, as well as for sending my original artwork. So it's pretty easy. They're standard size, and you literally do just peel it back and stick it on.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Judy. And thank you. We want to recognize that it is 3:30 right now. Alison, this has been extraordinary, of course, which we all knew it would be. And we all enjoyed our Sunday afternoon with you, being inspired. I know we're all likely going to go take some of our writing tools out if we haven't done so lately, and do so. This recording will be posted on the Monterey Public Library's website. You will receive a link once it's available. I'll also do my best to include a lot of these chat resources as well in the message to you. And again, Alison, the Monterey Public Library sincerely thanks you and gives our extreme gratitude to you for being here today and all of the time that you put into this wonderful presentation. And of course, thank you to all of you who are here and made this possible as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I miss everybody.
Mm-hmm.